Final hour OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker up on TSN 2. Bryan Hayes, Gord Miller, brought to you by FanDuel. Got a big hour coming up. Luke Willson will join us here. Luke would have played against Michael Oher, I guess. And this story is wild. If you're familiar with the movie The Blind Side, which was a great movie.
Yeah. Great
movie. Sandra Bullock, I believe she won an Academy Award.
She won an Academy Award, and it's based on Michael Lewis's book.
Right. And Michael Oher, who went on to go to school at Ole Miss and then eventually was a first-round pick and I believe was in the NFL for 7 or 8 years, really quality left tackle. It was supposed to be about his story, about being a poor kid from Memphis who eventually found this family that took him in at a private school, I believe, built him up, and effectively drove him towards NFL success.
He was already at the private school when the family took him in.
Yes. He I guess, befriended one of the kids that were there. Then they became close. And the amazing development that came out today is that Oher is actually suing that family, claiming that they duped him into signing a conservatorship. How do you pronounce that? Conservatorship, as opposed to an adoption paper. So when he was 18, he thought he was signing adoption papers to be a part of their family. It turns out that was not the case. So they basically have legal rights over using his image and making money off him. And he is reporting and he is alleging that he made no money effectively off The Blind Side. No royalties.
No, and that the family made out because the family.
And they made a fortune.
The family got an upfront payment, then apparently a percentage of the box office.
Right. So, including their kids.
And the kids are part of it.
The dad, the mom, and the 2 kids. And Michael Oher got nothing, effectively.
So, and he never liked the movie.
Well, it
or the book.
Depicted him horribly.
It made him look like he was...
Just a dumb, like he couldn't keep up with anything.
He was mentally challenged.
Right.
He's not. I remember seeing an interview with him, his 3rd or 4th year in the NFL, thinking, well, that's not what I was expecting at all.
Right.
Based on the movie. It's interesting because the Michael Lewis book came out. He was in the NFL already when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
So the question would be, should Lewis have known? Michael Lewis is interesting because his business books, like The Undoing Project, one of the best books I've ever read. It's incredible. The Big Short's a great book. Sports, turns out, the Blind Side may have some blind spots.
If this is true, now who knows if the author was aware of this? Why would he be privy to it? That what is being alleged here is the family duped Michael into, instead of signing adoption papers or what he thought were adoption papers, a conservatorship, which again is a lot like the Britney Spears situation that they just went through. It's as if the family can get rich off him without him actually benefiting. That is incredibly greasy. And here's one thing about the movie that you look back on it now. One, again, the way it depicted him. Like he was clueless, had no idea what was going on, and Sandra Bullock personally dragged him to the NFL. That alone is outrageous.
Well, the idea that he didn't know anything about football.
They didn't know anything, didn't know what he was doing, needed to be motivated. Like, there isn't a person on earth, biological parent, adopted parent, man, woman, elderly, young, that can drag someone to professional sports
so the problem,
without that person themselves having the wherewithal to do it, the talent and the drive.
So the problem with Michael Lewis is he likes good guys and bad guys. And the good guys have to be completely good, and the bad guys have to be completely bad.
Sure.
And so Moneyball, the book, is full of gross inaccuracies, and the movie is full of lies.
Okay.
Like the movie's lies. And so, because they want to make the story more compelling.
But the issue isn't the author, though, Gord. The issue is the family.
Right.
The author has nothing to do with the story today. I understand what you're saying about...
Except he went to high school with the father in the family. So you'd wonder...
So do you think he knew about this? I mean, if he did, he's got something to say. I don't think it's illegal, though. Nothing he's done is necessarily
No. But should he have known? Should he have known?
Even if he did know, it's Hollywood, and they're like, I don't hold them to any standard. Right? Like this family, if these allegations are true.
Yeah.
And if you read the article, I read what was on ESPN. It's everywhere right now. Because the reaction is going to be, this is a money grab in retrospect. It's not.
He's got lots of money.
He's got money. It wasn't about that. It was that he didn't like the movie to begin with, and understandably so, because he felt that it depicted him as basically just this
clueless
idiot that didn't know what the hell was going on, and this family dragged him to the NFL, which is completely untrue.
And he found the movie very painful, and says it actually affected his NFL career.
Sure,
but teams didn't think he was smart enough to play for them.
Exactly, because you do judge a book by its cover. And in this instance, you judge a book based on the movie.
Well, go back to Moneyball. It wrecked Art Howe's career.
Sure. But if what is true here is that this family was playing this role effectively, that they were just good people there to help him out. And I don't dispute that. I'm sure they still, they gave him a home. I'm sure they were still supportive in many ways. But if there was any type of kind of backdoor situation exploitation where it was all about them getting paid, and that's what happened. It's one of the greasiest stories ever.
And it just makes you kind of like, ugh.
Yeah, like, because again, in the piece that I read today, like to your point, Gord, he had been enrolled in this school, and he was already like a high-end elite athlete.
Yes.
Like track and field.
Yeah, he was basketball.
There were a number of things. And what was being kind of written into this article would indicate that this family may have been picking up on that. Like, this is our golden ticket here. And again, the way the movie is depicted, it's as if, the parents came in and sheltered him and pushed everyone aside and knocked down all the barriers for him, as opposed to him doing it on his own.
And now,
it's crazy.
You think about Sandra Bullock, here's my Oscar. Oh,
wow, it's not her fault. I mean, what's she going to do? You read the script, you go out and play it. She did a great job. But just such a greasy story. Like, if it's true. And I don't know, like those conservatorships, like they are tough to break. Because the thing is, he was 18 years old, no psychological issues or anything.
I've been trying to get on my one with TSN for 33 years.
Good luck with that.
They own me.
At some point, I'm sure that will happen for you. Here's former NFLer, TSN NFL analyst Luke Willson. Are you a Blindside fan? You like that movie?
I mean, I didn't love the movie. I did watch it, but that was sure not what I expected this morning, waking up, scrolling through social media, and seeing that the whole thing was a lie.
Wow, man.
Kind of wild.
It really is. And, like, I wonder, as a pro athlete yourself, like, now I'm looking back on it, and I'm picking it apart. And again, I thought it was a really good movie. Sandra Bullock was outstanding. But this driving force of the movie was that basically Sandra Bullock was the reason he made it to the NFL. Like, that in and of itself is insulting. Like, you can't make the pros because someone has pushed you towards it. Like, you got to have your own willpower, don't you? And your own talents and ability.
1,000%. And I do understand, like, the argument of, like, hey, he's 6'5", 320 pounds, and like super athletic. That obviously is a huge factor in making the NFL. But there's so many people, like, after he goes to college, like, we had guys, I was telling a story the other day about a guy who was drafted in my class that was, an O lineman, 6'5", 320, super athletic, played in the league for maybe 2 to 3 years because of behavioral issues, work ethic, like all of these things. Like, I don't really think that maybe, I mean, the movie says she kind of got him into it, but like to have the career Michael Oher had, not only in college, but also in the NFL, like a lot of that is going to come from a lot of good characteristics that he has himself, if that makes sense.
Right, exactly. And willing to get up and work for it, right? And natural talents and, reading playbooks and being coachable, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, we'll see where this story goes, but it was wild reading that this morning, man. The Blind Side is bogus. I didn't see that one coming. Anyway, we're chatting with Luke Willson. How about that play by Nathan Rourke over the weekend? That's a way to get yourself going viral quick, right? And get yourself known on the NFL scene, like the escapability, getting out of the pocket, dodging tackles, and then instead of just throwing it away, the guy actually makes a play. Like, that was one of the cooler touchdowns and quarterback plays I've seen in a long time.
It looked like Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
That's something you would see out of a Patrick Mahomes ordeal. And I was excited for him because, especially in his situation, like if he wants to stick with Jacksonville or in this league, the reality is, especially early on, he's going to have to really flash. And that's he certainly flashed. When you make a play like that, it almost was like a combination of Mahomes' throw, but also obviously very different scenarios, preseason versus Super Bowl, but kind of reminded me of the Eli Manning, David Tyree, Super Bowl where he's like, oh, here's a sack, and all of a sudden you're like, how is he still on his feet? And then again, Eli had an easy throw, not easy, but uncontested. He's got a dude hanging on his legs, and he fires a dime. I was like, it was a jaw-dropping play, to say the least.
So I guess the question becomes, and Luke, you know this as well as anyone. You've played in preseason games. You've seen young guys come in and try to make a mark. How much of a mark will that make? How much of an impression will that make on the Jacksonville coaching staff?
Well, my honest answer, and I'm not in Jacksonville, is probably going to be very little. I know that's a bit shocking. And to the rest of the league, I think it's a big ordeal. And what I mean by that is I find that, these preseason games, a lot of the media, that's really all we get to see. Hey, this guy came out, made a play, et cetera, et cetera. But the coaches have been able to see Nathan Rourke day in and day out, now going on 3 weeks, plus all the offseason. And it's the NFL, especially at that position. They're absolutely criticizing or complimenting every small decision he makes back there. How he carries himself in the morning, how he carries himself in meetings, how he's coming out and executing. So when I say it means very little is if he's had a, phenomenal camp from a variety of different aspects, then this is just kind of like, hey, not surprising. He made a great play. This is great. But if he's done, a poor job in camp or he struggled in practice day in, day out, in a preseason game in the second half, they're not going to be like, okay, he made this stick play against Dallas's backups. We need to bump him up the depth chart now. But that being said, the flip side of that, and we would say this all the time in the locker room, was, and they're just the veteran guys. That's what they preach. And when I got to become a veteran, it was kind of the same thing. I'd say the same thing to tight ends that were young. Guys who are going to make or not make the team. And you'd say in these preseason games, like, listen, it's probably not going to work out here in 2-3 weeks. Unless someone gets injured, you're going to get cut. But this preseason game is like creating your own resume for 31 other NFL teams. So the cool thing is now, if there's a guy, if things don't work out in Jacksonville, which I got a feeling they're probably going to, but if they don't, he's got 31 other teams that have now taken notice, and they'll see plays like that and think, hey, let's bring this guy in and see if, maybe it didn't work out for him in Jacksonville, but let's bring him in and see if he can learn our system and how he, adapts with our coaches.
With Luke Willson, so some news today, Ezekiel Elliott is signed with New England, or he's about to, a one-year deal, around $6 million. How much do you think Zeke still has left in the tank, and how much of a factor could this have in what the Patriots are going to do this year?
I think it's a big ordeal in the sense of I think that's really the type of game Bill Belichick wants to play. And, this comes from my time under one of his, understudies in Matt Patricia, but Bill loves the old school style football, run the ball, play good defense. But I think what we all associate with Bill now is that he was, kind of fell into their lap with the greatest football player to ever play the game and Tom Brady in the 6th round or whatever. And it's like, okay, maybe with such a phenomenal talent and worker at quarterback, we can kind of stray away from my normal style of football. Where now all of a sudden I think you're really going to see hey, we've got a horse here in Zeke, and we're going to run the offense through him. We're going to have our O-lineman's going to be mean, nasty, run-blocking guys. We're going to try and control the game on the ground, and have Mac Jones run some play action and make the throws when we need him to. That being said, I do wonder personally how Zeke is going to survive in New England. I was talking to a couple guys the other day that were there recently, and they just say that New England, it's everything that you hear as players. Nobody really wants to go there because, one, they're not winning, and they're going to be ran into the ground. I mean, I was laughing, but I was even listening to, I believe it was Edelman on a podcast the other day, and he was saying that he thinks he could have played 2 to 3 more years if he was playing somewhere else. but just the practicing in New England was so physical and so tough that he just eventually got worn into the ground. Zeke's been a guy who's taken a lot of hits in this league. He's had a couple, not crazy, but some injury issues in the past. Like, my biggest concern with that move is, can he stay healthy in that Bill Belichick regime?
Yeah, I'm always curious about that when it comes to Belichick and the way he operates. And, like, you look at his kind of equivalent in the NBA, it'd be Greg Popovich. And Pop has really softened because he realized his team wasn't any good. I guess it's different because in New England, maybe Belichick is forcing himself into believing they're going to be good. But I just wonder, like, how much longer that can last if he's still acting like a warden and he's running these guys into the ground, yet you got Mac Jones instead of Tom Brady, and you might only win 5 or 6 games. Like, at what point are the players possibly you'd have a mutiny on your hands? And if so, where would they go? Could they go to Bob Kraft and say, hey, this isn't working anymore? Like, could you see a scenario like that? Or is Belichick just too ironclad and he's never going to change and it's not going to matter because he's just going to continue to be the man there?
Hey, that is a great question, and I go back and forth on this. And I'll tell you a funny one, was that the Patriots, when I was playing, and it's still this way to a degree, but they had this, like, mythical air about them, and you sit there and you always hear these stories of, what was it like in the Patriots locker room? Like, what are the Patriots like? The year that, like, and it went from, like, oh, they're super disciplined to, like, oh, they're just a crazy cheat. And you hear all these, like, tall tales of these guys. I remember when we played in the Super Bowl, I'm, like, looking around. We're in Arizona the week before, and I'm like, what? Well, who are all these people here? And we had paid as an organization, I don't even know where you'd find this service at, but they were sweeping our hotel and sweeping I think we were practicing, like, ASU. They'd sweep our locker rooms for cameras because they had heard rumors that, like, Belichick's regime will plant cameras to try and cheat. Okay, that's not made up. And then
there is precedent for it.
Yes, exactly. So then we go from there, and I wasn't there. Again, there's, like, so many tall tales about this organization, but the rumor was that, like, there was a mutiny with Bill early on in his time there as well, and they weren't doing very well. And then basically, when Bledsoe went down, it was like the tipping point, like, hey, there's about to be a mutiny, and then all of a sudden Tom Brady came in, and the rest was history. So it would not surprise me, like, and I think it happened in Detroit. Well, we were there as well. With Patricia, these guys were fresh off Jim Caldwell. I had got there for Patricia's first year, and it was like, okay, OTAs was an inhumane amount of work compared to what I was used to in Seattle. And not smart work. Like, it would have been one thing if it was like, okay, we're really, like, working in a great direction. We were just being, for lack of a better term, dumbasses.
Right.
And it was like a military camp. And we were treated like high school kids. And we'd all kind of look around and be like, well, they did just win a Super Bowl recently. Like, this is the Patriot way. Like, we all want to win, so we'll do it. Well, now all of a sudden, like, midway through the season, when we're, in week 8 and we're 3 or 4 games out of the division lead and we're not even in that front of a division, all of us are kind of scratching our heads like, this is absurd, and myself included. So to answer your question, I think that if they start very slow, Mac Jones had year 1 where they were still pretty good. They obviously struggled last year. I think that division is wildly tough now with the addition of Aaron Rodgers and Jets. I mean, you tell me, unless Bill's got some wild tricks, I do not see that team winning the division. Miami, obviously Tua's health is involved here, but Miami has played, that offense very strong. Buffalo, I mean, to me, they're the 4th worst team in that division. I have a feeling that mutiny is going to come a lot sooner than what people think, and it'll be driven by the players.
So not to revisit your time in Detroit, but you are from Windsor. You played for the Lions. They have suffered for a very long time, for a lot of reasons. I just ran into some people from Detroit a while back. They're enthused about the Lions this year. They think this might be a big year for the Lions. Is that possible?
Well, I'm going to answer this in two different ways. So I also grew up one of these Lions fans who, as a kid, I tell people this all the time, so I'm sure, I dressed up as Barry Sanders for Halloween, I think more than once. Loved the Honolulu blue and silver back in the day. First ever football game was the Pontiac Silverdome type vibe. So that idea that people in Detroit or the Windsor area are enthused with the Lions and think that this could be a great year for them, I can honestly say that that's been the feeling for the last 33 years. And it was because I'm 33. It probably dates back even farther than that. But I can remember numerous years of us being me even being a kid being, you know what, they're going to turn it around this year. And so do I have full faith in that? Absolutely not. But that being said, I'm not the most diehard Dan Campbell fan when it comes to X's and O's. I think he does a lot of extremely risky things that are eventually going to bite him in the behind. But the division is probably the weakest it's been. I think the Bears have a lot of issues that are not solved. There's a huge question mark on Justin Fields. I think, the Packers going in with Jordan Love, a rookie, a lot of rookies or younger guys, as say, at the receiving core. Their defense on paper is very stout, but even last year, didn't play up to their standard. There's a lot of questions there. In Minnesota, their defense was horrible last year. Horrible. So the division, in my opinion, is wide open, and I would even go as far to say that it's the Lions' division to lose, and that's one of the nicest things I'll say about the Lions.
Wow.
Yeah,
but
I hear you, man.
If there's a team that can do it, what I mean by do it mean absolutely blow it and lose, it's clearly them. So by no means am I saying that they're going to win the division. I want to be on record. I'm just saying it's their division to lose. And it'll be very fun for me to watch how they manage to do that, because deep down I know that they're not going to do it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
This is Charlie Brown in the football, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm with you. I have no faith.
This is Lucy in the football. Luke, I've been to, I think, 5 Thanksgiving Day games in Detroit, and I think the average margin of defeat is 21 points.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I tell people this story all the time, and I don't know, this was 6-7 years ago, but they came, I was playing for Seattle. They came to CenturyLink, now Lumen Field. I want to say it was a Monday night game. If it wasn't a Monday night, it was a Sunday night game. If you're familiar with this one, they're driving the field in us for 2 minutes. Matt Stafford, Calvin Johnson. I'm on the sideline. I'm like, oh my God, we're about to lose to the Detroit Lions at home. Cam Chancellor punches the ball out on the 1-yard line. Calvin Johnson. There was all this drama because KJ Wright tipped it out of the back of the end zone. It's just ringing a bell. I know it was 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah, I kind of remember that. Yeah.
Yes. The place goes nuts. We just win. Again, I want to say it was a Monday night game. The stadium is rocking now. Okay. We've now beat the Lions on 20 seconds left in the game. We got to take a knee. And my teammates are looking at me on the sideline because they're all going crazy. They're like, wow, we just dodged a bullet. We shouldn't even be – it shouldn't have been that close. And they're like, Luke, why are you happy? And it was because I was sitting there with 60,000 people screaming. I was happy we won, trust me. But I was reflecting on my childhood. And I looked at my buddy, and I was like, his name is Cooper Helfit, tight end. I said to him, Coop, you have no idea how strange this is for me. He goes, what are you talking about? Again, everyone's going nuts. I go, this was every Sunday, it seemed like, in my childhood. Now I get to see it from a different angle.
No, I'm playing it.
Behind my TV on my couch in LaSalle, Ontario. And it was kind of nice to be on the other side of it. I'll be honest with you. It was kind of nice to have the Lions hand us a win instead of having your 10-year-old self to have their heart broken.
It's crazy, man. And they're playing opening night.
Yeah.
Can we get a petition going? We got 3 weeks, man. Get a different team playing opening night. I don't want to see Detroit the first game of the year.
Can you imagine if they pancake on opening night?
Who knows with that? Maybe there'll be a Super Bowl hangover. Maybe Mahomes won't take them seriously. But last time I checked, the spread was 6.5. I'm hammering Kansas City.
I would too. And the funny thing is, though, knowing how the Lions have played the last decade, they might come out and win by 30. But the problem is, then all of a sudden we're in a divisional game where they're the 6.5 favorites will come. they'll lose by 30, and Dan Campbell will refuse to punt the ball on fourth down. And it'll just be like a peewee football game out there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where my head goes. It's like it's just so inconsistent. Even last season, I felt like it was similar, where it's like, some games are like, holy smokes, this is a legitimate NFL football team. And then the next week, it looked like their defense could have been beaten by a good college team.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the Lions. We'll find out
Glad
starting in a few weeks.
So glad I asked.
So am I. All right, buddy. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
Talk soon.
There he is, Luke Willson, our TSN NFL analyst, longtime Detroit Lion fan, LaSalle, Ontario.
First Thanksgiving Day game went to was at the Silverdome against Denver. I want to say it's like 41-7. We're leaving. And this guy at the top of the stands in a Billy Sims jersey, where are you guys going? Don't be quitters. We're like, dude,
it's over.
Dude,
give it a break. It's Thanksgiving. Yeah, relax. Yeah, they have been on the wrong side of some awful games on those Thanksgiving days. This past year, they lost a heartbreaker, I think. Didn't they storm back, and then Dan Campbell screwed up somehow? There was some timeout issue, or he called a play he wasn't supposed to call.
He called timeout, but he shouldn't have.
Yeah, it was one of those scenarios where he didn't play the clock properly, and they ended up losing. It was actually a really good game, but they went 0-16. The Lions went 0, and I know the Browns have done that since.
Yeah,
but that was astonishing. I think that was an 0-8. And I remember watching them that day. I was betting that game. I want to say they played Tennessee or they played Baltimore or something, and the spread was absurd. It was something you just never see, even with a team that bad at home. It was like a 21.5 point spread, and they got destroyed, 49-10. It wasn't even by halftime. You're like, they're not going to cover the spread, and they're at home. To get a massive spread like that just does not happen, even in the NFL. Maybe you see 14.5, 16.5, maybe.
Yeah.
But that team was so bad.
In the NFL.
In the NFL on a short week, and that team's at home, you never see a spread like that. And even then, it was you got to hammer this.
But they got a salary cap. They have the draft. It's hard to be that bad.
It's very difficult. And things, break you. If you just have a quality defense, you're going to stay in a game. You're going to cover some numbers.
They trade their quarterback. He wins the Super Bowl.
Exactly. That was not his issue, right? It was not his issue. All right. Thanks to Luke Willson. We appreciate it. James Harden has got an issue with Daryl Morey and the Philadelphia 76ers. He has decided he's not doing it anymore. Not going to happen.
He called him a liar. Hard to take that back.
Is there any truth to it? What happens? And what is our boy Nick Nurse thinking? We'll try to get those answers. We'll do it next. All right, so the NBA offseason continues. It rarely slows down. There's always something going on in the NBA.
It is. It's like a show. It's like a television show.
Yeah, it's a soap opera, the NBA. The offseason is generally the most entertaining part of the whole thing because it's just bedlam all the time.
So in the NHL, guys wait by the phone to hear their agent tell them they got a contract or their team tell them they got traded. In the NBA, it feels like the managers sit around and wait for the players to call them and tell them,
yeah, I don't want to be there anymore.
I don't want to be traded. I want to go there.
Yes, or I'll sign that max contract or super max, but in 6 months I might change my mind. So James Harden, it's been understood that he wants out of Philly and that he specifically wants to go to the Clippers, as you've mentioned. Now, there was a report that came out a few days ago indicating that the Sixers have basically put that on ice, whether that's because they can't make the trade they want or they've decided we want to keep James Harden. Who knows? But Harden was doing a promotional tour in China and had a mic, was in front of the public, a lot of cameras around. And he called Daryl Morey a liar, and Daryl Morey runs the show down in Philly, called him a liar multiple times and basically said, I'm not playing for that guy.
Now, that guy was his GM in Houston.
He was the guy
years.
who ran the show in Houston when Harden was in his prime.
And it's believed that Harden went, one of the reasons Harden went to Philadelphia from Brooklyn was because of his relationship with Morey.
Who knows? Maybe our next guest would know that.
I think he will.
Here he is. He covers the Sixers for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Here is Keith Pompey. How you doing, Keith?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. So what do you make of this? James Harden going on record. I don't know. Maybe he was thinking I'm halfway around the world. It's not going to get home. But it got home, him calling Daryl Morey a liar multiple times and basically saying, I'm not playing for him anymore. How did you react to that video when you saw it?
I reacted. James knew exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing. I mean, if you think about it, James wants to be traded. This weekend, the Sixers called his agent to say, we're not going to trade him, right? Apparently that conversation didn't go well. And then next thing you know, it leaks out that James is not going to show up to training camp. And I felt like James knew exactly what he was doing. He did it in China. If you notice, several people had out their cell phones and this and that. And then next thing you know, in his way, it was like kind of sort of a drop the mic moment. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm here. I'm out. I'm going to make this as comfortable as possible for the 76ers. So he knew exactly what he was doing.
So, Keith, there was some suggestion that he wanted a max contract at one point, and then he's asked for a trade. If you had to guess, what do you think Harden thinks that he's being lied to about?
If I had to guess, and some people, say that they believe this is it. Like, you remember last year, James Harden opted out of his contract, right, last summer. And by doing so, he took a $15 million pay cut, right, in order for the 76ers to go out there and get P.J. Tucker and Daniel House Jr., right? So he did that. And a lot of people are of the belief he did that with the intention of getting the max contract this year, a huge payday. Because not only when he opted out did he take $15 million less, he also gave up a chance to get an extension this summer for around $220 million. So he by him doing that, it's like he did the Sixers a favor. And typically, when a guy gives up that amount of money, $15 million, they're only doing it on the belief that they're going to get more money on the back end.
So if that were the case, and yet now he still wants to be traded, and by all accounts he wants to be flipped, likely to the Clippers, like, does there need to be an element of self-awareness here from Harden that maybe the deal just isn't out there? Like, maybe what he thinks his market should be is just not a reality in the NBA?
Yeah, I think so. But I do. I think that there should be some self-awareness. But also, a lot of guys, within the organization, well, I shouldn't say within the organization, a lot of guys who played for the Sixers before, when they got traded, and their agents always felt like, Daryl Morey was asking for a king's ransom, right, when he came to get him. So I guess Harden is of the belief, like, look, you're trying to get rid of me. Get rid of me. I mean, you're asking for the star, the moon, and all this other stuff. Just get rid of me. But you are correct. There has to be some self-awareness. And part of the reason why they can't trade him is because it was like just dumbing the Clippers, and the Clippers knew that. And the Clippers aren't going to give away a lot for a guy who doesn't have a market. You know what I mean?
Right.
So Keith, play this out for us. You've got a new coach in Nick Nurse.
Yeah, we're worried about Nick up here, man. We got to be honest with you, Keith. We're worried about our guy.
And I mean, does Harden come to training camp? I mean, we saw the way he left Houston. I mean, it was scorched earth. We left Houston. I mean, how does this play out?
I think it's going to be tough for the Sixers because of, like you said, Nick Nurse. You guys are concerned about him. Nick Nurse came here for one reason. And some people might say that it's not a lofty goal, but for the first season, the goal is to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, the best chance that they had of that is when Kawhi had the four bouncer, you know what I mean, when the Raptors won the championship, right? That was their best chance. Nick came in here to get them beyond the second round. And ideally, you want everything to be smooth sailing, at least in the beginning, right? I mean, you want that. Well, I think that James Harden is either going to hold out up until the last minute because you have 30 days since the start of the season, training camp, to report. If not, you're not going to be a free agent at the end of that season. So I think he's going to come back, but I think he's going to be very disruptive to a point where the 76ers are going to have to trade him or do something with him. I honestly think that it's going to be ridiculous. I think it's going to be crazy. It could be a lost season for the Sixers.
Wow.
With Keith Pompey of the Philadelphia Inquirer, yeah, like Nurse, I mean, the bar was set. His first year in Toronto, we know what happened. He won a championship, and obviously a lot of that was the Kawhi deal. And Nurse is a really good coach. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, Keith. But to your point, he's walking in there. He's got a team that is trying to get over the hump. He's got James Harden now who may sabotage the whole situation. Embiid's been spectacular. He was great last year, but like you can't really predict, how much he's going to play, what he's going to bring to the table. Like Nick can be a tough coach. What do you expect his role to be in this? And can he have any role? Do you think James Harden would even listen to Nick Nurse?
No, I think it's above him. I think, right now the fact that, the fact that what James said about Daryl Morey, I think that's like between the two of them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like Nick, he looks at Nick, he talks about he likes the way Nick, wants to utilize everything. But I also think that this is deeper than Nick. And Nick just, unfortunately, is, I'm not going to say in the middle of it, but he's in the room. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But I think that, it's going to be like the thing with James and Daryl, the fact that James said he's a liar and he came back and said it and said, I'm not going to be a part of a team that Daryl Morey is associated with. I think that's just, bad for Nick. And in a way, you kind of feel sorry for Nick. I know he's getting paid, but you feel sorry from the standpoint is he took himself out of consideration for the Milwaukee Bucks job. Mm-hmm. Adrian Griffin has it. Now, all of a sudden, Adrian Griffin on paper has a way better job with a whole lot of less drama.
That's right.
So you back out of that, and this is what you have.
Really appreciate the insight. Thank you for this, Keith.
Thanks for having me.
There's Keith Pompey of the Philadelphia Inquirer, and that's harsh to hear on August 11th that this could be a wasted season already. And he's predicting what I think the world's predicting. James Harden is going to sabotage this situation.
Well, I think
he's going to be a poison there.
Well, I think fortunately the fans and media in Philadelphia are understanding.
Yeah, they generally are.
And so they're just going to accept this with aplomb and just move on.
Well,
this is going to be,
yeah, this is good stuff, man.
Well,
and Nick Nurse is right in the middle of it because
he isn't. I think Keith makes a good point. He's kind of not.
Well, but the point is, it's his job to find a way to win. And if you got a guy like this who's not even going to give it a shot, you're screwed.
It's not his job to make James Harden happy. That's I think his beef. Harden's beef.
It is once the ball gets tipped off.
Keith is right. Harden's beef.
It's with Morey. No, I understand that.
Not with Nurse.
But what I'm saying is that it doesn't matter who the issue is. Nick Nurse is a new coach on a new team, and if the season's already effectively over because of this,
and say what you want about
then
Harden.
He's picking up on shrapnel here that he could have gone somewhere else.
Say what you want about
He could
Harden.
have taken a different job.
He's not what he was probably. He's still a very
good player.
He's still what is he? He's a top 10?
I don't think he's in the top 10. I wouldn't have him in the top 10 anymore, but he'd probably still be in the top 20. And if he's in the mood and on his game and in shape, he can still score at an incredible level.
Right.
And he and Embiid, were a pretty good pair when they were both playing and both locked in. But he's going to likely sabotage this situation, which means they're going to end up flipping him basically for nothing because they're just going to have to get rid of him.
Right. So
what do you have?
And you gave up a lot to get him.
Yeah. Yeah, you did. Although, you unleashed Ben Simmons on the Brooklyn Nets. So, yes, you gave up a lot, but you also found a way to get out of another problem that was really hovering over you. So I don't think they regret that move.
One of the greatest lines about a trade ever was by a Philadelphia Philly. Vaughn Hayes, remember him? Was a very unpopular teammate in Philadelphia. He got traded, and a teammate said, "Great trade. Who'd we get?"
Yeah. See you later. Well, I guess that's going to happen with Harden.
Well, but
I don't know if his teammates dislike him or not.
So what?
This is between him and Morey.
What if the Sixers can find a deal with somebody else?
I guess it's possible. Anything's possible. right? Because now Adam Silver, with the whole Damian Lillard stuff, is trying to shut down the idea of a player demanding a trade to one specific place. So why would that not apply here to Harden as well?
I know. Now he does?
Yeah, exactly. He finally woke up.
This has been going on for 5
years. An issue for a while. Well, Silver and the owners finally realized we got to stop this.
And don't think for a second that athletes in other sports aren't taking notice.
Of course. You get paid the supermax and then still get out and go wherever you want. The best of both worlds. I don't blame the players. The players are like, hey, if you're going to let us keep doing it, we'll keep doing it. Yeah. It's a great setup. TSN 1050 once again delivering backpacks filled with school supplies to support local families. It's all part of our 9th annual Back to School Backpacks event happening Wednesday, August 23rd. This year's event is presented by Healthy Planet. Together in partnership with the Children's Breakfast Clubs, 1,010 young students will receive the tools they need to succeed before the school bell rings in September. For all the details, please visit us at tsn1050.ca. That's tsn1050.ca. Come back with our best bets.
Ooh, you hit one. I got to give you credit. You hit one.
Did I?
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I hit one.
You hit one on Thursday.
All right. Yeah, I'm on fire lately. I got a good one tonight. I got a good parlay tonight. We'll tell you about that. We'll get to it next. All right, time now for our best bets brought to you by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Rangers-Angels tonight with Scherzer on the mound. I like the Rangers on the run line. I think they win big tonight. I like Scherzer's 6+ strikeouts tonight. I think he goes off. And Braves money line versus the Yankees. Braves, Yankees, they've been beating up on those New York teams.
Yeah.
Would they hang 21 on the Mets over the weekend?
And the Yankees are spinning their
Yankees are in trouble. Max Fried on the mound tonight for Atlanta. I like it. Rangers run line, Scherzer's 6+ strikeouts, Braves money line tonight. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. Bet on star players to score, assist, or have a shot on goal in a soccer same-game parlay. Please play responsibly, 19+ and physically located in Ontario. Down to the semis, the Women's World Cup.
Yeah, so you said last Thursday that you liked Edmonton to cover at home against Winnipeg.
I loved them to cover.
And did they? And they did. Like I think
Absolutely.
the line was 12.5 or something.
12.5. I think they lost by 9, which is perfect. No one wants you to win. You don't have to win.
Well, they'd like to win.
It'd be great if they finally broke. And you got to win. The next time you win, you got to win at home. Right? Because I think they're 0-9 on the season. They don't win on the road either, Edmonton.
Can you imagine
the Elks are an issue wherever they play.
Can you imagine if they won it on the road?
Well, I guess at this point they'll take anything. But they had a 22-point lead in that game. They were up 22-0. Gord. They would have been favored. Like you talk about live odds on FanDuel. Yeah. I'll bet you they were minus 300, minus 350. You could have hammered the Bombers plus money down 22. And they ran away with that game. But they did not cover the number. I don't need you to win. I just need you to cover.
Have you seen the SNL skit, The Great Moments in Super Bowl Gambling History?
No.
It's like Super Bowl 5, Dallas facing, I forget who it was, Washington. It says... or not, Dallas facing Miami, and Drew Pearson catches a touchdown pass. It's the John Vicenda voice. Mm-hmm. The Cowboys lose the game, but cover the 9-point spread. They show Tom Landry being carried off the field.
Yeah, exactly. That's all we need.
Great moments in Super Bowl gambling.
Yeah, that's what they say. Good teams win. Great teams cover.
Not true. Not true.
Depending on
the Patriots,
what's on the line.
The Patriots' great teams were not great against the spread.
Well... You know what's interesting about that?
The spread was too high.
The 07 team where they actually went like perfect on the season during the regular season.
Lost the Giants.
Ended up losing in the Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure they covered a lot of those numbers, and the numbers were massive. Like, because remember Belichick was running the score up on teams.
Right.
Like he was being vindictive for some reason. And like
for some reason?
Well, I guess he was being Belichickian, but there were some crazy numbers.
Yeah. But historically, I remember seeing a number like Tom Brady against the spread is not.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, the spread, it's amazing to me how good they are at setting these numbers.
They hammer it. They absolutely nail it.
I think there's a suck. I think every week in the NFL there's a sucker line. Mm-hmm. I think they throw one out there.
Just to see if people are paying attention?
Just a little bit of bait to see.
Just to make it maybe a little difficult for them. But you're right. The books, like the amount of times the total is within a point or hits the number. It's crazy. And the amount of times it comes down to the fourth quarter or a 2-minute drive, and you're like, man, this is a 3-point ball game. The spread's 2.5. Like how? How did they know this was going to happen?
We have an impossibly hard pool here at TSN. Mm-hmm. We have to rank the games,
right,
1 to 16. So your best game is your 16-point game, and the bottom person every week is out. and it's against the spread. It's so difficult.
It's so tough.
Because you can't look at it like a fan. Like clearly.
Well, yeah, it's got to be heavily analytical.
Yeah, because clearly Kansas City's better than Tennessee.
Right.
But are they that much? Like, are they 10 points better?
Well, and there's so many built-in unwritten rules in gambling football, like who's on a short week, what are they doing under the lights. There's a difference if you're playing a Sunday night game or a Monday or a 1 o'clock game. Home and road splits. Who you played the week before? Did you get just beaten up and you just can't do it?
I do like good teams coming off a loss.
Yes, that's a big one.
I like good teams.
Good teams coming off a loss, and especially if the line is short, hammer it. All right, Gord, good stuff. We'll do this again tomorrow.
Are you wearing a jacket tomorrow?
I'm not sure what I'm going to do tomorrow. I doubt I'll be in a suit, but anything's possible. Anything's possible. Thank you to everyone behind the scenes. Everyone for tuning in today, radio, TV, podcast, web. Here we go, Gord. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.